Hello and welcome back everyone to a brand new non-Final Fantasy XIV affiliated job theory craft exercise. While this is one of the jobs that we came up with during the Patreon and stream discussions, I decided which one of those we would move forward with. I can't wait any longer. This time we're tackling the tank role, and the name, Magiteck Knight. Honestly, the job name has been floated by me a lot, but it never really made sense to me until now. Like, okay, Magiteck, what does that imply? A Garlean tank machinist kind of thing? Someone that just uses gun blades? Are we hopping in a set of Magiteck armor and just walking around the arena firing off cannons? But more discussion on stream, as well as some very interesting story beats in Final Fantasy XIV, spawned a brand new idea for the concept, which I will be sharing with you today. Let me give you an overview of what this baby can do. Hey, real quick, we've got a new plush on the way. I've teamed up with Gamestein to design our very own Drak plush toy. This campaign is going until December 3rd, so don't miss out. Everyone who orders before November 1st will also get their plush earlier than everyone else. We need 100 orders to get these babies into production, but we're already almost halfway there. So if you want to support the channel and get your very own Drak plush to love, hug, and cleave into oblivion, use the link in the description. You can also use code DrakGamestein15 for 15% off your order. And if you want to wait and see how it actually looks, I'll have a physical sample to show off ready for you guys next month. Alright, back to the video. Magiteck Knight is a tank class that utilizes the technology used to create the G-Warrior mech suit. Instead of piloting around a giant robot, however, the armor worn is only slightly bigger than your average Rogadin, and is powered by the life force of its wearer. Now, the main mechanic here is that this armor has its own health bar separate from that of the Magiteck Knight. During combat, any damage that would have been dealt to the Magiteck Knight while wearing the armor depletes the armor's health instead. It also incurs any vulnerabilities or defensive debuffs that the Magiteck Knight would have gotten as well. The interesting part is that the armor cannot be healed by the party's healer, but instead by the life force of the Magiteck Knight through various abilities. That means that the Magiteck Knight's health is used as a resource to heal the armor. The healers then restore the Magiteck Knight's health. The advantage of this system is that the Magiteck Knight can control how much damage they take themselves, instead of just taking large chunks all at once. But what's the point of that? In theory, being able to incur this gradual damage instead of the burst amounts should make it easier for healers to handle, or at least give them time to prepare. The armor can also absorb one instance of damage beyond its health limit before ejecting the Magiteck Knight and leaving them in an unarmored state until it can recover. This brings us to the recovery gauge, which would be a separate resource that fills up over time once the armor is depleted. Once the gauge is full, the armor can then be summoned and equipped again. Now, before people freak out oh, there's too many bars, too many resources, we already have the armor health bar that will be featured somewhere, I don't know, displayed on the party bar, in the UI, both, but we have that already, and the recovery gauge and the armor health are never going to be on the UI or on the screen at the same time, because in order for the recovery gauge to happen, the armor health has to be 0. So in this case, the armor health gauge, once depleted, will become the recovery gauge, just in case anybody was freaking out about that. I know at least one was. So in a nutshell, the Magiteck Knight wears a suit of bio armor that takes damage for them. This guy goes in here, he's not remote controlling it. Also, this says cannot die in armor, not just cannot die. Before somebody gets me on that. If they just can't die, what are you talking about? The Magiteck Knight heals their armor while the healers heal the Magiteck Knight. So, armor health here, Magiteck Knight health, this goes down, this goes up if it is down, and then the healers take care of that health bar. I'll give more information on how this exactly will play out, but this mechanic alone is what has had me consistently excited over this concept for the past 2 years. Of course, there's more to the armor than just taking damage. The Magiteck Knight will have access to versatile weaponry, ordnances, and modes while in their armor, while being much weaker outside of it as a counterbalance. The goal of the Magiteck Knight is to stay in your armor as much as possible, similar to, say, Nokian for Black Mage. So now let's go over some defensive cooldowns, weapons, and abilities. There's a lot of really cool stuff we can do with the cooldowns here just by nature of the aesthetic. For instance, we could have a barrier. Robots have barriers, that's not too far-fetched. It could be similar to Passage of Arms though, where you channel it to reduce damage among party members, or share damage with the party members, since we are already doing some sort of life force transference between the wearer and the suit. Maybe it could do something where it expends its own health bar to heal people over time. Or, similar to, say, Lifelink Totem in World of Warcraft, it could also share damage taken between party members within the area of effect. Now, obviously I'd like to avoid animation locks as much as possible for attacks, but defensive abilities that would be used during consistent raid-wide damage or boss transitions should still be fine. I bring that up because I think they look the coolest when you can stay in that animation and it feels like you're holding off the damage and attacks while it's up. And to make up for damage loss when the boss is targetable in these animation locks, we could have these types of defensive cooldowns add to a gauge used for attacks later on, so the Magiteck Knight's rotation and damage isn't hindered at all. Basically the same idea as Blood Lily, where using 3 GCD heals through the Lily system gives you Afflatus Misery, which I believe is DPS neutral with Glare 3, I think 4 is the brand new one. I'm pretty sure it's 3 casts of Glare 3 equals 1 Afflatus Misery. So you can heal without feeling like you're actually losing DPS. Another idea is a straight up defensive armament in the form of a giant shield with its own abilities. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll go into armaments a little bit more later. Aside from reducing damage, the way the Magiteck Knight heals its armor will be based on abilities or cooldowns as well. I'm not entirely sure how to streamline this, but the idea would be to have a few different abilities to heal the armor in different ways. For instance, one for something like a 25% cut to the Magiteck Knight's health to recover a proportionate amount of the armor's health. There could also be an ability that you hold down or toggle to channel healing gradually. We just want to have access to these skills at varying levels without also bloating the hotbar. I mean, let's just have a basic heal and bring back Dark Arts to make them stronger. And I just realized this might be a point of contention. The Magiteck Knight armor health will be equivalent to the Magiteck Knight's health. So it will be just a 1-to-1, or you heal the armor, the more you increase, the more the armor's health increases. You basically have a second health bar. You just get extremely squishy when that health bar goes away. Now next is the big one, which is the Magiteck Knight's invulnerability. Like I said before, the armor can already take 1 instance of damage beyond its health pool before ejecting the Magiteck Knight and leaving it in an unarmored and vulnerable state while it recovers. This, while strong, shouldn't be optimal, and I'd like to add skill expression to how this works with actual abilities or drawbacks. For instance, across any option that we go with, I think that the armor breaking unintentionally should cause the armor to forcefully eject the Magiteck Knight. I'm not sure if that equates to lowering them to 1 health, or giving them a vuln stack, or simply not being able to summon it back after a certain amount of time. Having a straight up penalty though might be a little too unappealing to newer players, but at the very least it shouldn't give a bonus. Or rather I should say, doing this successfully should give a bonus. Here's a couple of ways that I've thought to tackle it so far. The first option would be to simply have an ability that ejects you from the armor while instantly charging the armor's recovery gauge with a 2 to 3 minute cooldown. That way you take the hit, the armor goes away, you're unarmored, but then you can summon it back immediately, no real loss. The second ability is a lot more in depth, but it would be like a self-destruct sequence where you're expecting massive damage, for like a tank swap, or if you're trying to invuln strat something. I imagine this being a channeled ability where the Magiteck Knight depletes a percentage of their health consistently over a set duration. As the Magiteck Knight's health decreases, the self-destruct damage is increased, and the recovery gauge is filled based on some value of life lost. The Magiteck Knight's health cannot drop below 1 during this sequence, and the armor will not break until after the ability is done, regardless of damage taken, similar to most invulnerabilities. I'm debating on whether or not the Magiteck Knight should be healable during this ability to balance it out, but I don't think it should be too much of an issue if they are able to be healed during it, because there is a set duration that they can deplete their health in the first place. So there will be a potency maximum already in place. But the duration of that skill will depend on what makes it comparable to other tank invulns. We definitely don't want it to be too strong, but we absolutely don't want it to be underpowered. Whichever option we go with, whether these two or one in the future, this should allow the Magiteck Knights to participate in invuln strats or tank swaps without issue. Now let's talk about weapons and the armament gauge. Armament gauge. That's a hard word. In the unarmored form, the best I could really come up with was a mechanical glove or like forearm cover that the Magiteck Knight can use to call in their armor and other ordinances, which we'll go into later. Regardless of the default weapon though, the appearance of the armor itself wouldn't change. At least not significantly. There could be some flair here and there that could be cool. While armored, however, the Magiteck Knight can swap between fighting styles while changing its appearance in some cases to accommodate the armament gauge. I'm subjecting you to my fantastic artistry here. If you've ever seen Zoids, think Liger Zero and its different armors. If you haven't seen Zoids, go do that. Right now. Anyway, the way that this would work in universe relates to the Oversoul. Oversoul was used in previous weapons to utilize the data on fighters to manifest them into the pilots. This of course came at the heavy price of the pilot losing their sense of self and their lives. However, I believe this can be overcome with Soul Stones. The information on other fighters is channeled through the Soul Stone, granting us their memories and their abilities without compromising our own soul. Cooking with this one, guys. This is with gas. We're cooking with gas here. We then channel those memories into the armor, which then assumes the appropriate form. This armament gauge could be similar to Summoner's rotation, but I also see the option of choosing armaments at any time as long as you have the gauge to spend, regardless of if one was just used. The difference there being that Summoner has to cycle through all of their summons, whereas Magiteck Knight could just keep picking the same one if they wanted to, without harming their rotation. Whichever method we go with, the abilities that you have would change similar to how they do with Summoner or Reaper when they transform. So instead of your normal 1, 2, 3 or 1, 4, 5, as soon as you change forms like that, then the hotbar changes as well. So no bloat, everything that you already have on your hotbar just transforms into other skills based on the weapon or armament that you've enacted or summoned. And of course the armament gauge is more than likely going to be filled up with an ability on a 60-second cooldown and the normal rotation. So what armaments are we talking about? Like you just saw, the first armament would be a massive hammer that's called in, and I'm talking huge. Like, we're already plenty powerful as a raw warrior of light, and now we're being supplemented by a biomech suit. I guess this would be the perfect point to mention that the job trainer I have in mind would be Nero. He saw what Sid did with the G-Warrior, and some of the side story already alludes to this, but he's like, bet, I'm gonna do you one better. And I'm gonna use your precious little warrior of light to do it. If he had a mustache, he would be twisting it right now. So, this form is based on him because I don't think there's any way that his ego wouldn't include that. Anyway, nothing too special here other than just a giant awesome hammer. Slow hits with big damage, guaranteed crits or direct hits, and really satisfying sound effects. I didn't draw this one. I forgot. It's not really anything special anyway, but I should still have like a visual. So this next one would be a faster variant that utilizes claws or blades or something like that. Multiple arms here are an idea that maybe it could channel certain primals or icons like the Ultima weapon, but instead of what we already have with Summoner, we could choose Ravana or Sephiroth and spawn multiple arms as well. That way we'd still get some flavor without ripping off Summoner's bag entirely. For this form we just have lots of punches or slashes to increase BPM. This could also inflict a trauma or bleeding dot on the target, so again, back to the rotation, even though you technically, conceptually could do any armament at any time, it would probably be a good idea to at least cycle through 2 or 3 of them at least. Now, as you know, I like having options at different ranges. This is where we finally have either a heavy style chain gun or transform the arms of the armor into guns like Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. One arm, both arms, doesn't really matter to me. After all, what better way to pay homage to other Final Fantasy protagonists than Nero just saying he got their data from other shards or legends via Omega and incorporating them into the Magiteck Knight's fighting style. In this form, your movement would slow down quite a lot while dealing a consistent stream of damage, but of course increasing your range. At the end of that consistent damage would be a giant burst. If you've ever played Final Fantasy VII Remake on Barrett, you know what I'm talking about. As I mentioned before, there could be a giant shield or heavy defense armament. I changed the form a little bit here and I was going for like a shield or something on the head and it ended up being a Beetleborg, so don't know. This would be a form that sacrifices DPS and maybe even mobility again to substantially reduce incoming damage. It could also have abilities like erecting a giant energy shield, deploying shields onto the party, reflecting damage back to enemies, or just becoming generally really hard to kill. The final idea I have is something that could be used as the 2-minute window. I'm so reluctant to add something like that under the label of 2-minute cooldown because I'm not personally a fan of how 2 minutes are implemented in 14. But if we need one, I think this is the most appropriate option. I figured lots of people have been asking for a caster tank, right? For this armament, the armor would change forms to support either 1 or 2 large rail cannons on its shoulders. As with the chain gun, the range would be increased, but their attacks will now require time to cast. Energy would be stored in the cannons before firing off large bursts. As with most of these, feel is going to be the main selling point of this one. Give it some automatic crits or direct hits for the duration of the phase, or simply on the penultimate attack. Whether or not you fire off certain blasts, you build up stacks, and then once you have a certain amount, then there's a big explosion, or they transform into something else. Maybe they split off. Instead of being just narrow little cannons, they expand and just... I don't know. These attacks will also consume MP as a resource, because resource management is fun. It's fun, we should have more of it. Now, whether or not this is used as a 2-minute cooldown, I still want it incorporated into the kit. Also, on the note of caster tank, the issue that I've always had with the concept is how you'd position the boss while casting, presumably at range. I'm at least assuming that's the goal, is to be able to cast at range while also tanking at the same time. Regardless, there could also be an ability where you eject from the armor for a set amount of time and place it around on the map, similar to any other placement thing that we have in the game. This would allow you to take stacks with the party, or do mechanics without spinning the boss, as long as the armor still has health by the time you're done, and I'm assuming that we would have something where doing this willingly would allow you to still have a link and be able to heal the armor, or maybe it's just you're on the clock once you're out of it. Either way, you could just jump back in and resume your rotation. I suppose a caster tank could just conjure up an illusion to do similar stuff, but it's possible here, so that's why I brought it up. So we have defensive buffs, and we have the armaments. But what about the ordinances I was talking about at the beginning? While I don't want the Magiteck Knight being unarmored to be ideal, it shouldn't be defenseless. The idea here would be to use whatever weapon or tool they have to call in missile strikes or drones for protection, or even portions of the armor for various effects. Instead of changing your entire appearance, only a part of the armor would manifest. Instead of a massive hammer, you'd get armor on your arms, and maybe a smaller hammer. Instead of a massive shield, you'd have a smaller shield. Instead of a big chain gun, you'd have a smaller chain gun. I think you get the idea. But also calling in the drones or other support items to help your party, or just keep the Magiteck Knight alive until the armor can be summoned again. And I do believe you should start every fight in the armor. Early tank busters just wouldn't work without it. And for a movement option, instead of a gap closer, I was thinking about incorporating thrusters for quick bursts of movement. This ability would either have a set number of charges or consume mana. That way, when you're in the railgun form, you would be managing the resource for swifter movement, or using it for movement would be a detriment, or you have a limited number of uses before you just can't get your last cast off. Again, skill ceiling, up here. Also, having it consume mana opens up maybe an option of being able to hold it down or toggle it, so then you can just continuously zoom around the arena while you're depleting your mana. I think it would just be cool, okay? I'm gonna throw that out there. If it sticks, it sticks. It would just be really cool. It's the only reasoning you need. And I think that does it. I didn't go into the base rotation because ultimately it will come down to a series of buttons that increases one gauge or another, whether it's the armament gauge or the recovery gauge. Though the recovery gauge could also just be a cooldown thing and an overtime thing. But the rotation concept is something that just about every job has at this point, and I haven't come up with anything else that would take it off the beaten path in an interesting way. Same thing that we've already had. As always though, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. What sounds good? What sounds like it'll cause issues with the player base? Are those problems with the player base or with the design itself? Whatever your opinion is, let's get this ball rolling. And again, welcome to the Magiteck Knight chapter of this discussion series. Man, this thing's gonna be expensive if they ever implemented it. Just the finance people in the back shut it off! Don't! Stop watching! No, we can't afford it!